They said the eternal city could never fall. For nearly 8 centuries, Rome had stood unchallenged, a symbol of order and civilization. But on a fateful August night in 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. The gates of Rome swung open, and the armies of a barbarian king marched through. His name was Alaric, and his sack of Rome would shake the ancient world to its core. To understand how this moment came to pass, we need to step back to the late 4th century. The Roman Empire was still vast, stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia, but it was not the same juggernaut it had once been. In 285 AD, the Emperor Diocletian had divided the empire into east and west, believing that 2 rulers could manage the sprawling territories more effectively. But this division was more than administrative. The Eastern Empire, centered on Constantinople, was wealthier, more stable, and better defended. The Western Empire, with its capital eventually at Ravenna, was poorer, overstretched, and increasingly vulnerable. One of the pivotal moments in this decline came in 378, at the Battle of Adrianople. The Roman Emperor Valens faced the Visigoths, a people who had crossed into Roman lands seeking refuge from the terrifying advance of the Huns. Valens underestimated them, and marched his legions into battle without waiting for reinforcements. The result was catastrophic. The Roman army was annihilated, Valens himself was killed, and the myth of Roman invincibility was shattered. Adrianople was more than a military defeat. It was a warning that the empire could no longer control the barbarian peoples massing at its borders. So who were these Goths? They were a Germanic people from beyond the Danube, originally hailing from the lands near the Black Sea. Pressed westward by the Huns, they sought asylum inside Roman territory. But instead of finding safety, they were exploited by corrupt Roman officials who starved and mistreated them. Their rebellion boiled over at Adrianople, and from then on, the Goths were both a threat and a tool, foes to be crushed but also allies to be courted. It is in this turbulent world that Alaric emerged. His background remains disputed. Some sources suggest he was born on an island at the mouth of the Danube, others that he had noble Gothic blood. What we do know is that his first verified appearance in history was around 394 AD, when he fought under the Roman general Stilicho at the Battle of the Frigidus River. Here, the Emperor Theodosius fought to suppress a usurper, and the Goths were pressed into Roman service. They fought bravely, but many felt they had been deliberately thrown into the deadliest fighting, treated as expendable cannon fodder. Alaric himself hoped that his loyalty would be rewarded. He sought a senior command within the Roman army, recognition that a Gothic leader could be part of the imperial system. Instead, he was snubbed. Roman prejudice against the so-called barbarians ran deep. Humiliated and embittered, Alaric turned against the empire he had once served. His mutiny marked the beginning of a career that would change Rome forever. When Theodosius died in 395, the empire was once again divided, this time permanently, between his 2 sons. Arcadius inherited the east, while the young Honorius took the west. Because Honorius was only a child, real power lay in the hands of Stilicho, Rome's most capable general. Alaric, meanwhile, led his Gothic followers into Greece, ravaging towns and threatening the wealthy heartlands of the Eastern Empire. Eventually, Stilicho marched east to confront him. The two clashed in Illyria, where Alaric was defeated, but Stilicho saw potential in his enemy. With ambitions of influencing the Eastern Empire, Stilicho allowed Alaric and his Goths to remain intact, keeping them as both a threat and a bargaining chip. Over the next decade, Alaric maneuvered between East and West, sometimes fighting, sometimes negotiating. In 405, a massive barbarian army under Radagaisus invaded Italy itself. Stilicho rallied the legions and crushed the invaders, but the victory was costly. Then, on the last day of 406, disaster struck as the Rhine frontier collapsed. Vandals, Alans and Suebi poured into Gaul, shattering the defenses of the Western Empire. Rome was now stretched to breaking point. In the months that followed, Alaric besieged Rome not once, but 3 times. The city that had stood for centuries, that had once ruled the known world, was now helpless. Famine and disease spread as the population was trapped within its walls. Alaric demanded gold, silver, and freedom for slaves, and the desperate Senate paid. Yet negotiations repeatedly broke down. He even attempted to set up a puppet emperor, Attalus, but the scheme failed. Finally, in August 410, Alaric marched on Rome again. This time there would be no compromise. According to later accounts, the Salarian Gate was opened, perhaps by slaves, perhaps by sympathizers, and the Goths poured in. For 3 days, the Eternal City was theirs. Churches were spared, but palaces and homes were looted. Treasures that had been collected over centuries were carried away. The psychological shock was immense. Rome had not been taken by a foreign enemy in 800 years. To the Roman world, it seemed like the end of everything. And yet, the sack of Rome was not quite the apocalypse it appeared to be. Alaric's men did not burn the city, nor did they massacre its population. But the symbolism was devastating. If Rome itself could be humbled, then what was left of the empire's glory? For the Western Empire, this was a wound that would never truly heal. Alaric himself did not live long to savor his triumph. Only months after the sack, he died suddenly in southern Italy. According to legend, his followers diverted a river to bury him beneath its waters, hiding his grave for all eternity. Whether true or not, it adds a fittingly mysterious end to a man who brought the empire to its knees. The sack of Rome in 410 did not end the Western Empire immediately. It would stagger on for another 66 years. But it marked the moment when the illusion of Roman permanence was shattered. Alaric, the once spurned Gothic officer, had proved that even the Eternal City could fall. And in doing so, he lit the signal fire for the twilight of Rome.